So we're picking up with homework that we had previously started with target 12, and we're going to do the target 13 and 14 part of the homework, which is 5 and 6. So as a reminder, we are writing the equations of a piecewise function, and then we're going to talk about the domain and range of those piecewise functions. So in order to write these equations, we need to know two things about each part of the graph. We need to know the slope and the y-intercept. So I'm going to start with this first part. You can totally start with the other part. It's just I decided to start with this one. So the slope of any horizontal line, which is what we have here, is 0. The y-intercept is actually also 0. It touches the y-axis right there. So when we write this equation, it will be 0x plus 0, or we could just say 0. Not super exciting. Then we're going to do the same thing with the second part. The slope here, it's going uphill, is up 2 over 1, so a slope of 2. And I can't see where it touches or crosses the y-axis, so I'm actually going to carry this down. I'm going to extend this line until I can see that it would cross, and it looks like it's crossing at -5. So I used the slope going down 2 over 1 to extend that line. So the equation of that line is 2x minus 5. Now to finish writing these equations, we have to talk about the inequality part to our piecewise function. So our inequalities always start with x, and then we're going to see where that break in the graph occurred, and we can see it's at the x value of 4. And you don't have to draw that line, it just kind of helps me to visualize where that break is. Now this horizontal line where the equation was 0 is falling to the left of that line that I drew. So that means it's going to be less than 4. If you look, it also starts with that filled in point, so it is going to be considered equal to as well. For the blue part, the 2x minus 5 part of our graph, you can see it starts with an open point, so it's not going to be equal to, and it goes to the right, which would indicate greater than. So that would be our equation of this piecewise function. Now we're going to talk about the domain and range. So remember, domain goes from the left to the right. So if you look at your arrows here, it's going to go forever to the left and forever to the right. So we're going to say all real numbers, and you can write that out. I choose to use the symbol. For the range, we're going to break this up. So the range of our first graph just remains at the y value of 0. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down, so the range of that is y equals 0. Or, if we look at this graph, it starts at the y value of 3, and it goes up from there. So I'm going to say greater than. Notice I did not include the equal to there because that part of the graph, again, started with that open point. So that's your equation and your domain and range of the first one. Now for your second one, number 6, we're going to go through that same process. So slope, and I just started down here again. There's no rhyme or reason as to why I did. The slope, this is going downhill, and it looks like it's going down 1 over 2, so -1/2. The y-intercept I can actually see is at -4. So that's going to be -1/2 x minus 4. Then for the top part here, slope and y-intercept, again, this is going downhill, and it looks like it's going down 2 over 3, so -2/3. And we can actually see this y-intercept as well. It's at 5. So we have -2/3 x plus 5. Now we do the inequalities. So the break in the graph, if I make that vertical line, it's actually just on the y-axis, which is the x value of 0. So x and 0, x and 0, and now I just have to figure out the inequality symbols. So for what I have written in red, the -1/2 x minus 4, that goes to the right of this vertical line, so it's going to be greater than. And then if you notice, it starts with that closed point, so it will be equal to as well. For the part I have in blue, -2/3 x plus 5, it goes to the left of this vertical line, so it's less than, and it starts with an open point, so I'm not going to include the equal to there. So my equation of this piecewise function is finished. Now for the domain and range. So how far to the left and right? I'm talking domain here. How far to the left and right does this graph go? Forever. All real numbers. You should notice the pattern there. For the range, I'm going to do this part first, the lower part. And this graph starts at the y value of -4 and goes down from there. So y is less than or equal to -4. I included the equal to because it did start with that closed point. Or, if you look up here, this graph starts at the y value of 5 and it goes up from there. So y could also be greater than 5. And I did not include the equal to there because it is an open point, not a closed one. And that's your homework for targets 13 and 14. You're finished with Unit 2 homework.